Hey folks, it's your good friend Creedmoor Fury coming to you from my happy place in the middle of my garden. It's close enough to the middle of my garden. And it's really cold outside. I don't know if you all have checked the mercury, but it's hanging pretty low. Some regions north of me, I don't even think the mercury is coming out to play. But we're still down here in the south, we're still trucking along. There's been a lot of talk, a lot of conversation, a lot of banter in group and other places about different ways to warm your greenhouse. And one of the things that we've done over the years in the past, I've demonstrated this concept before, is to make a rather large and substantial pile of compost and then run a tube through it. In this particular case and in this video, I actually have the tube to show you. It looks like this, right? And we circulate the cool air from the greenhouse, preferably from the bottom of the greenhouse, down into the tube, into the compost pile, where a thermophilic compost pile is already nice and hot. It moderates the temperature of that cooler air, converts it to warmer air, and exits it into another portion of the same greenhouse. And the cycle continues over and over and over again throughout the coldest part of the day. Typically, in my case, that's going to be between the hours of about 5 or 6 p.m. and 9 a.m. in the morning in the dead of winter. So we have that window of opportunity where compost heat generation, biological generation of heat, is going to be beneficial to us. And I like to think of it like this. These little guys, they're little workers that work, and they're going to work no matter what. They're going to work over there where I compost with them, or I can concentrate them in an area just below my greenhouse, let them do their work there, and cycle some of that cooler air at their feet. I can keep them oxygenated using different composting techniques other than turning the compost pile. We're going to get into some of that. But for now, I want to talk to you about the basics and the principles that are at work. Things that I wish someone would have brought to my attention in the beginning when I first did this. But without further ado, I would have to give credit to Jean Pain, who was a French farmer, French grower, French researcher, who came up with this concept of generating heat through the use of microbes and decomposition. He was also able to extract methane gases from his cycle. That's not something I'm going to be covering here right now because it's not something we're actively doing. But I will cover the basics that are going to make sense. And you know what? We're going to jump right into it. I'm going to show you right here. This thing right here I got on my left side is a 4-inch drain tile. It's unperforated. It means it has no holes in it. This is commonly used in agriculture systems and home construction industry, where we want to move water, large amounts of water, from one area to another. It doesn't have to just move water. We can use it to move air. And in this case, we're going to use it to move air. We don't necessarily want that air to move too quickly. If it moves too quickly, it won't stay in transit long enough to actually have its cold removed from it and the warmth added to it. So these little riffles right here, they do a really good job of creating turmoil inside the tube. That turmoil tends to keep the air in action inside the tube longer, ultimately giving it just a little bit more time to take on the calories that are being emitted from, of all things, the microbes that are decomposing our wood chip media, our leafy green media, our kitchen scrap media, all within the same pile. Maybe we're also composting manures. Some specific manures can be added. But the reason I've got this thing sitting right here, y'all are about to go to sleep on me, but I'm telling you, there's a reason for this, okay? This end right here is higher than the pickup. The pickup on the other end is 50 feet away because I bought a 100-foot roll of this stuff to be split in half so I could use 50 feet at this greenhouse and 50 feet at the other greenhouse. Eventually, this is going to turn into a coil where this will become an outlet port inside the greenhouse. And the lower end you could consider to be the input port where the cold air is going to go. You can even hear a little echo from this. But what I want to demonstrate to you is this has been sitting in the sun for 30 minutes. It's already taken on a lot of calories. A lot of BTUs are being held within it. And they're being drawn from down there through the tube, up and out the tube, okay? Hot air rises. So the heat is being transferred to this black color, and the whole entire way, convection and the stack effect is drawing cooler air from the shaded area into the bottom of the tube, conditioning it, and it's making it warm. It's actually warm right here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come around and I'm going to show y'all that the exit temperature is one thing. Cover it just a little bit. You can see 91, 85, 84. But you can obviously see 86 degrees is significantly warmer than the air temperature around us. Now I'm going to take a walk down to the other end of the tube and show you what the air temperature is that side. And y'all are going to be able to see The temperature is 53, 54, 53.9 degrees. Same temperature it was a few minutes ago when we checked it the first time. So in the shaded area here, it's roughly 53 to 54 degrees. And we've taken on from 53 or 54 degrees, roughly 40 degrees. Just from the influence of the sun and its ability to impart some of its solar radiation as heat to this particular piece of tubing. So from here, what we're going to actually do is I'm going to find an entry point over here in my greenhouse, and I'm going to find another entry point on the other end of the greenhouse so that I can insert each end of this. And by the way, for those of you that are new to the channel, this is last year's bioheat compost pile. We generated about 20 or 30 yards of compost from it in the end, and much of it has already been spread. At least half of it's already been spread, and now we're looking at regenerating the whole entire pile. This whole mass of it is going to get regenerated with new media. Before you hear, between myself and the cameraman, is a pile of media that I've been collecting over the past few weeks, and maybe even longer than that. This is just one location where I've consolidated some of this compostable media. We've also got our wood chip piles that are elsewhere. That stuff will be brought to this area right here when we're ready to make this compost pile. I'll be making it on a specific ratio. I'll also be adding moisture to it. That's something that I can't necessarily add moisture to it right now because we hit freezing temperatures and the water system to my garden is turned off so it doesn't freeze. But be that as it may, I'm still going to walk all y'all through the simple construction methods that we use, the techniques, and I'll talk about the principles a little bit here and there. It's going to be long-winded, but it's the wind, in fact, that we change. All right, so here's the back of the greenhouse. I dug out some of the soils, compost, chips, created a roughly 8-inch trough following the side all the way down here towards the German Shepherd. This pipe is going to go in there. Since this is the sunny side of the greenhouse, well, that's where I want this to go. It's going to get inserted in, and then it's going to be held up a few feet off of the ground. And on the other side, through here, it's going to go through this compost system. It's a very, very deep compost system. See the ductwork right there? Circle around, maybe in one spot where I can concentrate some heat really well underneath that exhaust. And then it's going to enter in over here. Somewhere right here. This is where our temperature readings show is the coldest side of the greenhouse. So that's where I want to remove the coldest air mass and draw it down through that tube. Through that tube, it'll come through a powered ventilator into the soils, into these deep soils where they're going to be composting. And it's going to take up some of that heat. It's going to condition the temperature of that cooler air. And the stack effect, in addition to the power from the ventilator, is going to deliver the warmer, conditioned air to this side of the greenhouse, creating sort of a cycle. This is some of the media that I'll be using. I'll also be using wood chips. The dog's going to help. And in addition to wood chips, I've also got something else that we're going to use this year. It's in the corn family, and it's crushed. And we're going to use that as a source of nitrogen. It's going to take the place of a green, which we don't have because, well, look, it's winter. There's no green available. See? So here's that same view of the back, only now that little trench has got this 4-inch duct in it. Goes underneath the bottom rail on the greenhouse, and then it travels sort of on a downward plane almost, all the way out, around back. It will need to do a circle. I'm not going to cut it. I want it to stay 50 feet. That way I can get a reasonable measure of performance based on feet. And I'm just going to do that little simple loop right there, a little courtesy loop, before I run it back into the greenhouse on the back. The white pipes that you see there are EMT, painted white, and they're pushed into the ground because anywhere where these pipes are, we will not be doing any stovepiping. We won't be seeking to add oxygenation to the process. They not only hold it in place, but they tell me where the tubing is. And the tubing is vulnerable to injury from punching holes in the compost pile to bring and deliver oxygen, pore space. So this is what I like to do. I mark them out with that, and in the worst case situation, I could bring out my little metal detector and get a little beep beep going on and locate them all. And it's pretty simple because most of the time they're going to be covered. This level right here is a little bit lower than what the finished level will be when the compost is built. I've got the 12 inches of extra material from the sides of the greenhouse flared out. This is going to get wood chips piled on top of it. More than likely, I'll put about 12 inches, maybe a little bit more wood chips there to, you know, to keep that weighed down and to keep the pipe. You got to keep the pipe insulated. 12 inches of wood chips is going to afford me quite a bit of insulation. So more than likely what we'll end up doing is putting even more than that, but the initial cover will be about 12 inches just to get us out of the gate. You know, so obviously the more insulation you have, the better. And this happens to be a spot where it's very easy to add insulation because it's the edge of the garden. So I can just show up with a couple of wheelbarrows worth of wood chips and just lay them down. Check it out, the heat's activated inside. The diesel heater is going. I'm over here using a rake, narrow rake, to rake out the last little trough to the edge of the greenhouse over there. And this pipe right here will once again go underneath the bottom rail on the greenhouse and enter into the greenhouse. In its current state, it'll actually work in a passive fashion, even if I don't put a blower on it. Okay, so here we go. I got the rest of the pipe in place. I've got all my pipe markers in place. There's my little circle. And come on down here. It goes underneath the exhaust. You'll see that right there? Those 4 pipes, they're made out of metal. The exhaust is going to warm them up. Yeah, it's going to transfer some of that warm into the wood chips too down below. So we're going to have another warm point. It's okay, it's okay. We're going to keep the air moving. I don't have to worry about condensation becoming a problem. More pipe points right there holding it in place. And right there into the end of the greenhouse. Okay? So the temperature's falling, heat's on, dog is hungry. I'm going to go ahead and cover this up so that we don't introduce too much cold air in there tonight. This is only going to be down in the 20s. I think we should be okay. But I'll come back here tomorrow. We're going to make some compost. Pretty cool, huh? Bio-compost heater. Okay, so day 2 on this compost bio heater build. And you can see right there where it enters. It's been covered. The pipe has been completely covered. It's completely delineated. The loop where it spins around does a full circle is also marked out. I don't have to worry about the ductwork getting injured. And I'm already starting to layer more compostable media. And the dog is chasing reflections. But anyway, okay, let me walk down the line. So you can see here I've even got it covered. The pipe is completely covered. I even put some coffee grinds on it today because I had some that came down, and it runs into the building right there. It already works based on the stack effect because the end of this tube runs through the compost and into the other side of the greenhouse where the sun is actually on the tubing, raising the temperature on it. So it's raising the temperature there, which is creating a high and low pressure condition that's drawing in cooler air on this end. Later on, when I add the blower unit, it will assist that whole entire process because the sun isn't always out, right? I still want to be able to draw warm air from this during the evening. So, yeah. I can touch base on this one more time over here. I can see my dog's already been in. It's okay. Exhaust from diesel heater. You can see we used roughly half a tank last night. Exhaust from the diesel heater comes here. It warms up these pipes. The pipes make contact with the tubing below. Transfer some of that thermal energy to the ductwork, and it's sort of like an assist mechanism because I'm not going to be burying this super deep right here. We'll have about 12 inches of wood chips over the top of it, but it won't be an active composting zone. So over here we'll have a really significant pile when that's done, and there'll be a fairly significant buildup in this area as well. In this scene you can see I'm actually building the layers. Basically one layer at a time. Vegetative matter that's green goes down, vegetative matter that's tan goes down, and I'll put some wood chips down or some other compost as a mother amend. The dog comes in to check it all out, and then I'll basically start the process over again. If it was warm right now, we'd be also adding some moisture with each layer. That way it's not deficient in moisture by the time we get to the top of the pile. In this case, it's going to take a little bit of help from Mother Nature and at least one warm day to get some water on it. Check it out, we got a lot of layers on there now. All kinds of good stuff. The pile's getting bigger. It's about like it's supposed to be. I still got a few more scoops of wood chips to put on it. And right now I'm actually going to be putting some more cracked corn on. Once I get the cracked corn on it, I'm going to put some compost tea on it. And then I'm going to cover that up with another layer of wood chips. Yeah, we're always trying to, move some of the compost from one area to another. If I've got a finished compost pile from over there, I'll go ahead and take some of it and put it here. If I've got compost tea made from it, I'll use that because it's a liquid and it spreads easy. Here's a little view of the top of the compost pile. You can see I put the last of a 50-pound bag of corn, and I'm about to cover it up with another layer of wood chips, some young wood chips that have plenty of leaves in them, and then it's going to get hydrated. All right, folks, we're just about there. I think I've reached the end of my pile, and I even turned the water on down here to my farm today. Temperatures above freezing. I'm in the third day of the build and pretty much finished. I'm gonna go ahead and turn you around, and y'all can get a pretty good idea of how much compost you have to make to produce the heat that's necessary. And I know when I started out in the video, I started out talking about 15 yards, and that is really about right from my perspective. We've been making these for several years now, and I always need between 15 and 20 yards. You can get an idea right there. The greenhouse itself is 28 feet long. So normally, if a greenhouse is 28 feet long, I make the compost pile 28 feet long. If the greenhouse is 10 feet wide, normally I try to make the compost pile roughly 10 feet wide. And if the greenhouse is 7 feet tall, well, guess what? I want to try and make it so that it's as tall as it can be. And this exercise has shown me that there's tremendous influence in utilizing compost to make heat. It's inexpensive or free. And in my case, it just cost me the labor. It cost me $20 to get this particular load of wood chips delivered to me. We did use chip drop. And it cost me whatever greens I had. I did also add one $10 bag of cracked corn. And that's about it. In the years behind us, I would add usually some chicken manure. In this particular case, I don't have any chicken manure at the moment. So, we're making do with what we got. But everybody's environment is amenable to these things. For me, because I know I need a lot of compost, well, it takes a lot of plants to generate that type of composting system. So we grow a lot. I even grow a lot of sweet potatoes for this guy right here. So anyway, if you made it this far through my sermon, through my compost heat dissertation, then by all means, feel free to share what we did today. Feel free to comment. Feel free to ask questions. Tell me what you think. Tell me how crazy this is. Ask me about the alternate heat sources that I use. Because compost heat is not enough to really achieve the type of climatology that I need in this greenhouse here. It would be enough for a greenhouse that I was doing support for trees and things like that, but not in a greenhouse that I use for supporting nightshades. So this one has to be a little bit warmer, and it does take some supplemental heat. But you want to talk about knocking down heat, the compost knocks down the amount of heat that I have to add to the system. So anyway, God bless, y'all be well, and till the next time, till we meet again.